Hello, this is Simon Jackson from LearnLoads.com. One argument sometimes put forward is that the European Union, or EU, is undemocratic because its laws are made by unelected bureaucrats. This is in fact misleading. Its lawmaking process is a democratic one, as I'll show here. This video covers four questions. What is the European Union? What kind of laws does the EU make? What are the EU law-making institutions? And how are EU laws actually made? In 1957, 6 European states signed the Treaty of Rome, thereby creating what was then called the European Economic Community, now known as the European Union. When this video was made, there were 28 member states, although the United Kingdom has voted in a referendum to leave the EU. All 28 states are listed below in alphabetical order. Those with an asterisk are not members of the euro currency, having preferred to keep their own national currency. The European Union is not a state in its own right. Member states retain their own lawmaking parliaments. However, EU member states have to follow EU laws. Well, broadly speaking, it covers business and economic affairs, international trade, taxation, and various other government activities. The EU does not create criminal laws, and there are some areas of civil law that are more or less unaffected by the European Union. EU laws fall into one of three categories. Firstly, directives. These are statements outlining laws that member states are required to pass in their national parliaments in order to meet the requirements of the EU treaties. Secondly, regulations. Regulations are detailed laws that apply to everyone in all of the member states without the need for a national law. Thirdly, decisions. Decisions are EU laws that have to be obeyed by a particular member state, individual person, or organisation, rather than by all member states or all EU citizens. Because the EU is not a state, it doesn't have a king, queen, president, or a prime minister, or, in the usual sense, a parliament. However, the EU treaties have established three distinct institutions or organisations that together create EU laws. These are the European Commission, the European Parliament, and the Council of the European Union. The Commission is made up of 28 commissioners. Its job is to draw up bills, that's proposals for new law. The governments of the member states appoint commissioners, but they have to swear that they'll act in the interests of the EU as a whole, rather than those of the member state of which they are a citizen. The Commission is important because it's the body where laws start off. However, it can't make laws on its own. To become laws, the Commission's proposals nearly always have to be agreed by both the Council of the EU and the European Parliament. In a very small number of instances, the Parliament only has a consultative role. The Council is in reality not a single council. It's what could be called a revolving council, made up of various government ministers from each member state. For example, when the Council is looking at transport laws and transport policy, the transport ministers from the governments of member states will attend. When it's dealing with energy, then clearly a different group of ministers will meet. The Council of the European Union, please notice, is not the same as the European Council, which is where all the heads of state, that is, presidents or prime ministers, meet. The European Council meets 4 times a year to discuss long-term policy and political direction. It does not have a role in approving bills. Please also note that the Council of the European Union is not the same as the Council of Europe, which has nothing to do with the EU at all. I know. It's confusing. The European Parliament is where democratic representation comes in. The 751 members of the European Parliament, MEPs, are directly elected by the citizens of their various countries every 5 years. The number of MEPs a member state has is roughly proportionate to the size of its population. No country can have fewer than 6 MEPs or more than 96. Although at one time the Parliament really only had a consultative role, since the Lisbon Treaty in 2009, the vast majority of bills need to gain a majority vote by the European Parliament to become binding law. So how exactly are EU laws made? What is the process that's followed? Well, before explaining the detail of that process, it's worth explaining what is meant by a reading in relation to the Council of the European Union and the European Parliament. So you will hear about first reading, second reading, and so on. What does that mean? When a bill goes through a reading, it's not just a formal reading out loud, but a scrutiny and debate of the bill over a considerable period of time. At the end of this period, a vote is held. When a vote is held, there are three possibilities. Either the bill is adopted, rejected, or amended. To make life easier, Parliament here refers to the European Parliament, and in the graphics that's P for short. Council to the Council of the European Union, that's C for short, and Commission for the EU Commission, CM for short. A bill, that's a proposal for law, remember, is created by the Commission after wide consultation. After that, stage one is first reading at the European Parliament. If the bill is accepted, it will then go into a first reading by the Council. Alternatively, the Parliament may send the bill to the Council with amendments. In other words, parts of the bill are changed. If the bill is entirely rejected by the Parliament, the Commission will either give up or basically ask the Parliament to consider what amendments it wants to make. Stage two, then what we have is that first reading by the Council. And if a bill was accepted by the Parliament and goes on to be accepted by the Council, then it will become law. If Parliament amended the bill, on the other hand, the Council will vote on these amendments. So if in the first reading of the European Parliament there's amendments, then the Council has got to vote on those clearly. If these changes are not accepted by the Council, it may make its own amendments and return the bill to the European Parliament. The Council might, however, simply vote against the bill in its entirety. Stage 3 is second reading by Parliament. This is where Parliament will review the Council amendments, decide whether to accept them. If it does, the bill becomes law. If it rejects the amended bill, the whole process comes to an end. Alternatively, the Parliament may send the bill back to the Council with new amendments. Stage 4 is a second reading at the Council. The Council considers the latest batch of amendments. It may or may not accept these. Stage 5 is something called the Conciliation Committee. Now, after that second reading in both the Parliament and the Council, if there's still no agreement, then the Conciliation Committee will be set up, will meet. Its members are an equal number of representatives from each of those two institutions. If they can't come up with a compromise agreement, the law will not be passed. If, however, the committee can reach an agreement on a revised, compromise version of the bill, it will then have to go through to a third reading. So stage 6 is a third reading by Parliament. The revised bill can either be accepted or rejected at this stage, but it can't be amended. Stage 7 is the third reading by the Council. Again, the revised bill can either be accepted or rejected, but not amended. Failure to win a vote in either the Parliament or the Council will mean in this third reading stage that the bill does not become law. The Commission will either come up with an entirely new bill and start all over again, or just give up on these particular proposals. So, to sum up, the Commission comes up with proposals for law. These must be agreed by both the Parliament and the Council. This could be a relatively straightforward process, or it could involve a bill going backwards and forwards between the Parliament and the Council up to, but no more than, 3 times. It's clear that theoretically, the involvement of the European Parliament means that there is a democratic element to the process of EU lawmaking. Now, in practice, Perhaps one could argue it's a different matter. The turnout of voters in European Parliament elections is low. In 2009 it was only 43%, for example. EU citizens often have little awareness of or interest in how EU laws are made. In a survey conducted for the Observer newspaper in the UK, for instance, only 11% of the public surveyed could name their MEP, compared to 52% who could name their national member of parliament. Is the EU fundamentally undemocratic, though, or is it more a matter of ordinary voters, for whatever reason, not getting involved? I hope this helps. If you have any questions, comments, or requests for law videos, please feel free to ask down below and put your comments down below. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe by clicking the red button on the bottom left, and also like the video using the little thumbs up sign on the right hand side at the bottom. There are lots more Learn Loads videos. Follow the website link here to find details of various free resources for law and also for business studies. That's videos, and there's various other things you might want to have a look at as well. Thank you very much. Bye.